Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video, I'm going to be making this constellation card with a difference, and the difference is it lights up. This uses the copper tape, LED diode and battery method, and I purchased these after watching a video on Mel Jess Designs where she used this method of construction to produce a light up bauble with a pull tab. I've followed exactly her process in terms of circuitry, etc., and I just changed up slightly the method because this has got a little battery housing behind here rather than a pull. So let me show you how I put this, which is my first light up project, together, and I have left in the video the parts of the process that went awry, so you can see what went wrong and what I did to rectify it. So without further ado, let me show you how I put the card together. The first thing I've done is I cut a piece of copy paper which was going to be the size of the top patterned paper on my card, and I'm using this paper which is from the Stamperia Cosmos Infinity collection. Because I'm using a 6x6 card blank, I've cut this to 5 3/4 by 5 3/4, and I've cut my copy of paper exactly the same. Now I'm on a sort of a go big or go home mission with this, because rather than do a simple 2 or 3 light card to start with, I've gone for the constellation of Aquarius, which has got 12 points to it. So this is going to be a real baptism of fire. So the first thing I've done is I cut my copy of paper to the right size, and using resources off the internet, I've traced out the constellation. So these little black points here are the stars, and then the lines are just for my benefit, how the constellation sits. And having done that, I realised that where I was originally thinking I would have my press button over here, I'm now going to have my press button on this side, and I'm going to shift the constellation over slightly on my backing paper so that I have enough room to get my tape around. So if you're going to do something a little bit more intricate, then I think the copy of paper was the way to go. What I've then done is I've just, for my own benefit, I've taken 2 pens and I've drawn the positive and the negative track that my copper tape is going to take. So this is where my press button will sit and my battery will sit, and this is the trail that my copper tape is going to take. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to line up where I want my constellation to sit on my backing paper, which will be there, so that my push button, which is going to be under this little Aquarius label, will be here on the card front. And I'm going to tape the 2 pieces together just so that nothing shifts. So I've taped my template and my backing paper together. The lights I'm going to be using are these 3mm lights, which come from this kit here. My plan is I'm going to use my screw punch to punch the holes. So I've chosen one of the ends, and I'm just going to do a quick test. So that will sit quite nicely. I'm going to have them, do I want them facing up? So the legs will be splayed out like so. So my original plan was to have the lights lying flat like this, and then the hole would be over the top. I'm now wondering whether I should have my lights actually sticking up. If I have my lights sticking up, then I've got to use quite thick foam tape because these are quite deep. So I think I'm going to continue with the plan of having the lights lying flat, and I think I could possibly afford to go with a smaller hole. So I'm just going to test. So that would be that size, and I think that's too small. This is my first one. It's a bit trial and error. I'm going to stick with the bigger hole. If it doesn't work, I'll just see whether I can take the lights off and reuse them. I have 500 in the packet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my template, and I'm just going to punch through. Holes for my stars are now punched into my backing paper. So I'm going to lay it on my card base, and I'm just going to make a pencil mark in each of the holes so that I know that that's where my lights are going to sit. So all the workings are going to be on the card base, and then this is just going to sit on top. So the only other thing I need to do to this backing paper is I need to cut the hole where the battery pack is going to sit. Okay, so my battery pack wants to sit roughly here. Draw around that. So my battery is going to sit in a little piece of card which will sit here. This tab here will sit over a hole which will be over the top of this. So when you press this, it will push down onto that, which will push down onto the battery, which will make the lights work, in theory. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a circle die and run it through my die cutting machine to put the hole in. So I'll go away and do that, and then I'll come back. So I now have the hole which my battery will sit behind. So what I need to do now is I need to add the copper tape to here. So I'm just going to reline this up and just retrace where my battery is going to sit. And I'm now going to follow my plan and lay my copper tape on. So the first thing I'm going to do is stick my battery house in. Then my battery will sit inside, and I need to make sure that this is the positive, so that the positive of the battery is stuck there. So the one thing that I've learned from the YouTube videos I've watched is that it is, as far as possible, it's important to keep a continuous line of the tape going. So I've got my little plan in front of me, and this is self-adhesive. So this will run from here up to here. And we then need to go round a corner. And the lady did a quilter's mitre corner. So she pulled the tape back on itself and then created, need to go a bit further forward, I think. And then created the triangle. There we are. And that's going to be too close to the edge, isn't it? That's not going to work. So let's unpeel So that's ripped. Okay, I can leave the battery where it's going to be, and I'm going to have to shift everything down further because I haven't got enough room. I didn't allow for the fact that I've got this gap around the card front, and I didn't allow enough space to get the copper tape round. So I'm going to leave, I shall leave this bit in the video because it's all good as to how not to do it. So we'll get rid of those marks. So I'm just going to put an arrow there so I know this is the way up. So I need to make sure that when I position the lights, I've got enough space to get the tape round, because the tape is 1/4 of an inch wide, you can see. I'm going to put a pencil mark roughly. It's the most important one is this one at the top, because that's the nearest to the bottom. So I'm just going to do that. So I need to shift it over. Make sure I've got enough room this side. So I'm going to mark where that would be as well. Shift it over and shift it down, and I need to make sure that I've got enough all the way round. So that's going to need to come down. So my tape's going to need to go round this bend here. So I need to make sure I've got at least 1/4 of an inch between where the light's going to be and the end of the paper. So I think if I go across down to there, got plenty of room that side. I think that will work. So I'm going to retrace some holes. So let's try again. Ignore the rule about trying to use one continuous piece of tape. That's one piece. No prizes for neatness, but we get the general idea. And what I should have done is I should have had this as the inside. It would have just made it easier. I need this to come from here up to here, around and then along. So I'm going to lift this piece up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this bit off here. I'm going to add the tape here. I'm going to go along to here, cut, and again I need to be wary that I've got this gap at the side where my top layer is going to sit. I need to come down here, still if I make these mistakes then hopefully if you give something like this a go you won't. It's all part of the learning process. And then I'm going to join this onto here, add this onto the top of my house and wrap this around there. So that's my first part of my circuit. So that's my negative. And I'm just going to write. So we now need to do positive. So for this one, I need to go inside the track. This one is going to sit on what will be my positive side of my battery. And the key thing is you don't want the two bits of copper to touch. So in theory, let's do a test. So these feet will be stuck to the copper tape. Positive side will go down like that. This will come down and that lights up. Well, wasn't expecting that to work. I've just realised that I've completely wasted this sheet of paper because I moved the lights. So I'm going to lay my plan back over. I'm going to tape these together, my battery back in where my battery sits. And my battery is going to sit here. So I'm going to flip this over, punch my holes, recut the hole for my battery. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put my hot glue gun on and I'm going to start to glue the lights into place. Before I stick each one down, I'm just going to test that I've got it the right way up, because my understanding is that one leg of these is meant to be longer than the other, and that indicates whether it's a positive or a negative side. So I think the short side is the negative and the long side is the positive. I am going to test each one before I glue it down. So I am going to stick my battery in place. Okay, so my lights are now all glued in place with the hot glue gun, and I tested each one as I went round. What I'm going to do now is just take some time to get rid of all the glue strings, and I'm going to add some copper tape over each of the little legs just to secure them in place. And again, I'm going to test each one as I go round. So my lights are all taped down and secured with the copper tape, and I can now get to the stage where I can secure my backing paper in place. So I'm just going to rub out my pencil marks. So my Aquarius push button is going to sit over the top of there. So I'm going to stick my Aquarius in place to start with. So I'm now going to add my foam tape around the edge of my front panel, and then once I've added one strip of foam tape, I'm going to just lay it over the top before I take the backing off, just to make sure that everything is at the right height, because I may need to add another layer. I'm not sure. So I'm just adding that around the edge. The reason I've got the kitchen towel underneath is because I've gone around the edges of the designer paper with some Distress Oxide, and it's just a little bit wet still. This will sit over the top. Okay, now if that sits down around the edges, the lights won't actually come on until you press down on here. So I think I'm going to go ahead with the one layer. So that's the card as it is. Push down and you can see the constellation. So I may go in with maybe a white gel pen and join up the constellation as it is on the plan. Let's try. Okay, so I'm going to follow my plan. So my top tips would be plan, plan, plan. Perhaps for your first one, don't go for something quite so ambitious. I'm thrilled. I am astounded with how well this has come out. And once you've got your plan in place, it's really simple to put together, to be honest. I perhaps could be less overzealous when I use the copper tape, adhering the LED diodes down to the copper tape. Don't worry about having to use one continuous line of copper tape to create your circuits. As long as your copper tape is at one piece overlaps the other piece, the circuit will continue. And then lay your pieces out first, and then I would just say test, test, test. Particularly when you're using this one for 12, for instance, each time you stick one down, before you put it in place, check that your legs are the right way round, that your negative is going to your negative copper tape. Mark the back of the card as much as you need to help you figure out how to complete your circuit. And each time you put a light down, test. Put all your lights down. Once they're all secure, then you can manipulate the legs of the diodes onto the copper tape and then use copper tape to secure it down, and each time test. So there we are. If you've enjoyed the project, you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. Until next time, thanks for watching.